Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Client Threatening Me with Court Action along with Exposing Me for Who I Am. Never thought I would end up posting here, but would like to understand my options and if I am in the wrong. A bit of background information about myself and the client. I own a small London-based gardening company that specifically deals in contracted groundskeeping at high-end apartments and estates. One of my sites is no different, and I had taken on the contract in October after the previous gardener company were dismissed for being less than satisfactory. Many of the plants there had died, so needed replacing, which is not an issue, and over the months I had been quoting up ongoing replants with the estate's managers with no problems, and I was instructed to replace plants with the same sized plants that were originally planted 2 to 3 years ago. They don't have much money in their budget for extra planting, hence why I was instructed to buy smaller and thus cheaper plants rather than replacing, like for like, which would have been 5 times the price. Plants grow in the end anyway. So that is what I did. The resident in question had dead hedging that was around 1.8 to 2 meters high outside his window, but was originally 1 meter when planted, so that size is what I replanted with. I emailed the quote to the manager along with the sizes of the plants going in. I had actually gotten slightly bigger plants in the end, and he accepted the quote. Great, I planted it up and thought nothing of it until I received an email a day later from the resident in question. It was less than friendly to say the least. He went on a spiel about how he had worked in intelligence, had an IQ of 145, had contacts in the journalism industry that would ruin me, and that he would ruin my business in court if I did not rectify the problem. Understandably, I was a bit miffed at his emails, but I remained cordial and explained to him that I had been in communication with the estate managers regarding quotes and planned works etc., and that his problem is with them and not me. I even sent him screenshots of my emails with the estate manager, hoping that would calm him down, but nope, it was apparently still my fault. Eventually I came to an agreement with the estate managers that I would pay £800 of my own money to replace the hedging with bigger plants as a goodwill gesture. I was hoping that this would be enough to make the problem go away. The resident has been informed about it, and I did not hear back from him until this afternoon. He is demanding that I instead get much larger plants, which will end up costing me over £2,500, which I think is around $2,800, which I absolutely will not do under no circumstances. I want to keep this site, but not that much. I'm just curious as to whether I have anything to worry about in regards to his threats, and also if I potentially have a legal leverage, for lack of a better term, over him in regards to his threats. To me it feels very much like he is slandering me and is threatening my reputation and business. Obviously, I don't want this to go to court, but I also don't want to be bullied and threatened by some rich guy who, after a quick Google search, is pretty influential in his circle. Any help, advice, or what steps to take would be greatly appreciated. I have everything in writing from my emails to him to my emails with the estate managers. And a user in the comments suggested, I would be inclined to suggest that the mistake you made was engaging in correspondence with this chap. By the way, very UK-ish, I love it. With hindsight, you should have passed his email back to the estate management and let them address it directly. Now that you have corresponded directly, a polite note requesting that all future correspondence regarding the gardening should be done via the estate management and or the trustees. Then ignore any other email from him. Do not spend any of your own money on rectifying the issue. And another person said, I definitely would not be shelling out $800 of my own money if I were you. Your contract is seemingly with the building management company and you delivered on your agreed scope of works. In your situation, I would just disengage from this guy. How did he even get your email address? And guys, I'm curious, what would you do if you were in OP's situation? Let us know in the comments. And by the way, if you want to hear more legal advice stories from the UK, then please let me know in the comments as well. And the next one is an update to the hedge story. So, a fair bit has happened since I replanted the hedges all those months ago. Most of the hedges predictably died despite watering from myself on visits and the angry resident. To cut a long story about the hedges planted, they were not suited to the soil, nor are they reliable plants anyway, which I had told him in the past. He again demanded that I replace the plants or else, which I straight up refused to do despite his threats. I had already spent enough money and time on him and gone well outside my contractual obligations to accommodate and satisfy him, but nothing was quite good enough for him. I was not going to do any more than I had done already. Even though his demands and threats really got to me, so much so that I contacted a member of the estate's board of resident directors to have a moan. I sent the director my previous correspondence with the resident and the estate managers, and he was pretty horrified about it. 2 days later, I received a phone call from a different director who turned out to be a lawyer by trade. She was majorly annoyed about the hedge resident to the point that she would personally done some research into his housing contract or whatever it is. All of the other residents have been nothing but positive, happy and understanding with the gardening and additional required works. For clarification, each ground level apartment has its own patio area behind garden areas with a rail fence between the boundary. Another rail fence closes off the garden to passers-by. He had said that he owned the section of the garden outside his patio and had even removed the rail to expand his area. He has also put up his own decorations on the rails that enclose the garden, which really didn't fit or suit the theme of the rest of the building and gardens. So it turned out that everything he had said was a load of bull. He didn't own the garden outside his apartment's boundary, nor did he have any right to remove the fence or demand a replant. It's all the discretion of the directors, as all of the gardens are communal, no matter where they are situated. The rest of the directors are fuming at this resident for overstepping his boundary and also for threatening me with legal action. They are all very appreciative for how I tried to handle it, but are also apologetic about how I was treated, and the lawyer even said that I would have legal grounds to file a complaint with the police, which I won't be doing as I just want to put this issue behind me. He's had a stressful past few weeks already. Anyway, as a way of making it up to me, they have given me the go-ahead to do a massive more replant, returf and mulching on the site, so it has worked out well enough for me in the end. I still think this won't be the end of it though. He will probably do or say something else in the future, but I've been instructed to just ignore all contact from him and to notify the board of directors whenever I am contacted by him, and they will handle it. It does feel good though to have him out of my hair and to be working for a decent hands-on board of directors for a change. From my experience, directors tend to just shrug their shoulders whenever there is a difficult resident. Yeah guys, I gotta say, I'm not sure if I believe that neighbor about him having an IQ of 148. Maybe he got a little numbers twist in there and the one was actually not supposed to be there. Either way guys, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much in advance, it really helps out my channel. And the next one is titled HOA Harassment, but we are not even members of the HOA. Our home was built before the HOA was created and the owners did not wish to become members. When we purchased the house, the HOA sent us a letter asking us to join and we declined. This is not the first violation letter we have received, but every time we get a new one, my husband gets more and more upset. In this current letter, they are threatening to issue a deed restriction violation if we don't repair a broken fence post. I understand it is a simple fix, but that is not the point. Do they have any legal right to do so? What, if anything, can we do to get them to leave us be? ETA, we have lived here for 4 years and have never paid dues or been sent any letters requesting that we do so. And a user in the comments suggested someone may have just accidentally, inadvertently, sent them to you. They may not know you don't belong to the HOA, they might be new on the board or just assumed you are part and never checked. If you own a home where people all around you do belong to the HOA, this seems even more plausible. Might just be a misunderstanding. Have you ever just asked them about it? And another person said, first check your deed and make sure you have not somehow been added to the HOA, and then respond in writing, use certified mail, that you are not members of the HOA and that they cannot fine you, etc. Keep a record of this if/when you receive any further letters or notices of this nature, keep them and then report the HOA for harassment. And another guy said, after your lawyer reads it and assuming you are not part of the HOA, have them send a sternly worded letter and ask if you have cause to at least recover your legal fees. Update to the HOA story. I spoke with someone over the phone and they confirmed that we are not members. However, they were contacting us on behalf of our neighborhood civic improvement association, which is apparently different from the HOA. After looking over the closing documents for the house, one of the pages that was signed was an agreement to keep the property up to standards set by this other company. So the HOA can hold us liable even if we do not keep our lawn mowed or fence fixed, but they cannot issue citations for things like a flag on the front of the house or "Beware of dog" signs on our fence. And once again guys, you really gotta be careful what you sign, especially when it is about documents in regards to living in an HOA neighborhood. Apparently, in one way or another, the HOA can entrap you with some small writing that you might not have seen. Have you guys ever signed a contract and later on regret that decision? Let us know about your failed/stories in the comments. The next one is titled, Cross-post from r/LegalAdvice, police used a battering ram on our door. They had the wrong address. When I asked why, I was threatened with obstruction of justice. And by the way guys, this was posted in r/LegalAdvice Canada. My wife, 2 kids and I live in a big house. It has 2 units at one address and 2 completely separate in a unit beside ours. Both addresses are clearly marked and have large identifiable entrances. The cops showed up today, used a ram on our shared entrance that locks. They then went to use their ram on our actual door into our apartment. Luckily our neighbor ran out yelling they are not in the right place. I went outside after we saw them pull out the correct person in handcuffs. I was ordered off property until I told who I was, and then I was told to F off inside. I said I had a right to know why they broke our door down. They said back up, and then finally he told me there was a call to Unit 2 at this address. I later confirmed with the staff sergeant that they did indeed have the correct address, they just bashed in the wrong building's door. The police officer then proceeded to tell me if I don't go inside that he will arrest me for obstruction of justice. I live in Ontario, Canada, and I pulled out my phone at that point and recorded asking for his badge number and name. He wouldn't give me his name, but he said his badge number, and another officer came over and started telling me that I was lying about him threatening me. They didn't call the landlord or tell anyone about the damages. When I called, I was told they didn't enter my unit, so it is not an issue. I insisted that she take down my landlady's name and number so she can contact her with info on how to get them to pay for the door. They all defended each other. I was threatened. If my neighbor didn't stop them and I wasn't home, my wife would have been so scared. She deals with bipolar disorder and high-stress situations can trigger manic episodes. I'm not sure what I'm asking for, I just didn't get anywhere talking to the staff sergeant. Essentially just defended the cop's actions and said it was a tense situation. Man, the cop wasn't even wearing a mask. It just seems messed up. And a user in the comments said, if you did not get a satisfactory response from the staff sergeant, you can launch a complaint here. I have no guidance on property damage. Luckily, your landlord is probably on the hook for that under the RTA. You may be able to bring a private suit against the police under the Crown Liability and Proceedings Act, but it will be expensive and difficult. And another guy said, I would recommend that you try and get in contact with the police chief, it is a small enough town and city, and simply show him a video on walking into the house that both doors are bashed in. Then explain that you were threatened in the ways you described it and end it requesting that some sort of punishment or permanently note be placed in those officers' files for the dishonorable behavior. And include what video you have of the incident. Going this route, it may prevent them from advancing in the force and leaving to a nice safe security job. But it can also result in the chief getting involved directly, which could really affect change. I have done this myself during an incident. Unfortunately, it turned out most of the force was corrupt as F. They stopped answering calls at the bar I worked at. I moved out of there ASAP. Better to know how bad the police force is and try to find a better town or city. And guys, I gotta say, obviously the American police force is on blast nowadays. Every single news you see, you hear something about them, but honestly, I've never heard anything about the Canadian police force. I know that we have quite a few viewers from Canada, so I'm curious, have there ever been any really awful incidents or any scandals with your police force? Because quite frankly, we don't really hear about what happens in Canada, neither from Europe nor here in Asia. Most of what we hear focuses on the US actually. And the next one is from r/ripe stories and it was posted by user Peachy Pumpkin Skinny and it is titled "The threat of small claims court makes narcissist exploiter finally pay me back." Oh, and by the way guys, I forgot to mention, unfortunately there isn't an update for the story from before yet because it is still a very new story. However, I thought it was just too crazy not to share. Small claims court, a very handy resource. Years ago while in hospital, I met another patient and we began a relationship while still in hospital. After I got out of hospital, the relationship continued and I continued to visit him despite his complaints that my visits just were not good enough quality. When he got out, he began draining me of money. I don't have much money. I kept a list of all expenditures made on his behalf, kept all the receipts and got him to sign an IOU. Every time I ran out of money, he would break up with me, and when I got more money, he would pretend he never had broken up with me. Classic gaslighting, telling me I had imagined it. He was quite verbally abusive too, but I made excuses for him because he had been so sick. The last straw for him was when he applied for a car loan and put me as the co-signer. By the way guys, you know, one thing I noticed, am I the only person who is really struggling with pronouncing things like last straw? Like that double ST is really difficult for me to pronounce, I'm not sure why. Either way, the dealership called me and I told them I had never agreed to that, and when they heard my income, they affirmed that I never would have been approved to be a co-signer in the first place. A couple of hours later, he calls me, yelling over the phone, how could I betray him like that? Oh, he had plenty to say, and so did I, but I never got a chance to say any of it.
You don't have the money,
he yelled.
We're through.
And hung up. Well, good. I made a spreadsheet of what he owed me, thousands of dollars, he drained my savings and put it in his mailbox. No response. I called, he said he didn't have the money. I kept bugging him, he always said he didn't have the money. Finally, he blocked me and I left lots of letters in his mailbox and they were ignored. After 4 months of this, I went to small claims court, I filed, I had to serve him, and I tried with certified mail. He wouldn't accept it, I tried with a courier. He would not open the door, I went in person and put my finger over the peephole so he couldn't see who was knocking. He opened the door, I handed him the papers and told him that I was suing him for what he owed me. He looked at me from a hall full of moving boxes, a map of another province tacked up beside them with a driving route marked out. He was in the process of moving to another province and said to me,
"Have I ever given you reason to distrust me?"
"Hardly, haha, what a comedian." I told him he had been served and walked away. A check for the full amount, and it didn't bounce, arrived in my mailbox the very next week. I did not even put everything he owed me on that spreadsheet. I found more receipts later, but it was only for a few hundred. I feel like I had stood up for myself and was vindicated. I hope he moved far, far away. And guys, I'm curious, did you ever go to small claims court? And if so, did you ever have any success with it? Let us know in the comments. And the last one is titled, My Father, My Hero. It is not really about legal advice, but it was posted on our own subreddit by user Mama-san, our community's favorite entitled diva. Old Navy brat here, you have seemed to like my tales of growing up as a military dependent. I never realized just how great my father was till I was an adult. He served 27.5 years, but was not given any big recognition on what he did. The first time I learned of some of his greatness was when Top Gun came to theaters. I asked him if he was a student pilot in Top Gun. His answer was no, he was never one of the students. Several years later, he let slip that he was one of 8 pilots chosen to start a new training program for advanced jet combat. 4 pilots for F4s and 4 pilots for FAs, he was one of the F8 pilots. This new training program later became known as Top Gun. Second time was a family gathering. His brothers were teasing him about so many soldiers around me and my older sister. It turned out while stationed in Okinawa, Japan, the Blue Angels came to perform. One of the stunt pilots tried to date my barely legal sister. With a playful smirk, he told his brothers that young man did not like my dad telling about the trouble that pilot had when first learning to fly jets. The other Blue Angels took to teasing that young pilot until my dad reminded them he had taught them all. Turns out, he had taught the entire Blue Angel stunt team of the early 70s how to fly jets. Other things came to light over the years that let me know he was a real hero. He received no fanfare or awards, but he did his job. The last thing I will mention, he was one of the pilots who sat hot on the runway during the Cuban Missile Crisis. My Father, My Hero. Last Charlie, 29 September 2005. Thank you very much for the interesting story, Mama-san, and I'm curious about my rap stars. What is your favorite military-related movie? For me, it is probably Saving Private Ryan. I could watch that movie again and again. It is just that good and that horrific. Either way guys, unfortunately we have already reached the end of the video. Once again I have to apologize for the one story that didn't have an update, but it was just too good not to post. And by the way, one more thing in regards to Am I the A-hole? I'm not sure if that is really a subreddit that I wanna do, because it does not really seem to be consistent in regards to views and too many other people are doing it. Do you think I should continue with r/Am I the A-hole, or should I do something different? If you have any good subreddit recommendations that go in the direction of legal advice, just no HOA, etc., then please let me know in the comments. Either way, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.